could record it tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
I've started it, so we started recording, so I'm very happy to
Yeah.
share it with you. Yeah.
Excellent.
And hopefully we can carry on in the relaxed way we
Absolutely. Yeah.
started.
For
Yeah.
me, this is just a wonderful opportunity to meet with you. I mean, we've known each other since briefly in South Africa, but over the years, on and off, what must have been 40 years now.
Amazing. I did meet you when you were an apprentice, didn't I?
Yeah, in Johannesburg. I used to, Shelley and I used to know each other in the Christian community in Johannesburg.
Oh my gosh.
We were
Okay.
childminding together. Yeah.
Okay. I'll remind her. I think she remembers.
She does remember. She told me that one day.
Okay, cool.
So we've
That's
kind of
okay.
known each other back from then. It's a long journey from Johannesburg and
Yeah.
Melbourne, Adelaide,
Yeah.
different places. It was
Yeah.
wonderful to hear you've been reading my book. So would you like to just restate what you said before?
Yes. Well, I just wanted to say that, I've been involved in Waldorf education since Shelley was 4,
Wow. Yeah.
and she's in her middle 50s now. It's a very long time. You would have thought I learned something, but anyway. Um, but I did learn quite a lot, and of course I'm unlearning all the time because I find that anthroposophy and Waldorf education, the insights of Steiner, are such that I will come back to a lecture of his 10 years later and really cannot believe that I read that lecture because I'm seeing it
Exactly.
completely
Yeah, I know
different
what you're
way.
saying.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I thought I knew, but actually, no, I didn't. I hadn't even got to grips with the essence of it. Yeah. So, and having grown up in South Africa, as I had said, in the Southern Hemisphere, and I had a Jewish upbringing up until I was 13, I had no real connection to Christianity or festivals or anything like that. And then coming into Waldorf education and the Steiner schools there, the Waldorf schools, I'm suddenly confronted with festivals and so on. And then at a certain point, particularly in Australia, when I came here, I heard, oh no, the festivals need to be the opposite way to what they are in the Northern Hemisphere, because we're on the south and everything's turned inside out and upside down. And truly, I could not feel my way into that. I have such a love for the earth as a being that I regard as partly Christ's body as a being, and that the manifestations of the seasons in the different places are, in a way, the different faces. The different faces, it's a different experience, but it's got love buried within it always. And so I'm a kind of, in a way, I feel I'm a simple person. That's all I need to know. And reading your book is amazing because you've got the whole zodiac, you've got um, just a relationship between our physical body, etheric body, astral body, ego, and more and more and more, and all the beings. It's very rich and very dense. And I really reread it the second time, but when I reread it, I'm going over and over the paragraphs
Probably
because
read it more than I have. Although it took me 20 years to write it. So
yeah, yeah,
it's a lot
absolutely.
of rereading, but that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yes. So it's been very interesting because I completely resonate with your perspective. And in fact, I think I might have rushed through some places when you were making a case for the fact that we all experience a kind of Christmas at the same time of the
Yeah,
year,
yeah, yeah.
you know. And I've also all had this feeling that, when it's Easter, sometimes I feel it's Christmas. Or when it's Christmas, I feel it's Easter. And then I realize, of course, they're connected.
Yeah,
They're so
exactly.
deeply
Exactly.
connected.
Just depending on which level or aspect you're experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Like an
exactly. I
organ. It's
mean,
basically like an organism, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one's a birth and one's a death. And if you've given birth to children, you know exactly that they,
How connected they are. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you could die giving birth.
Exactly. Exactly.
And, I had a stillbirth, so I know you think you're birthing a baby, but actually, no, the baby's dying. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, I'm old enough to incorporate that all in my being.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yes, so I've been teaching Steiner the essentials of Steiner education for years. I started off in South Africa. I ran
Wow.
a full-time early childhood teacher training. We
Yeah.
started actually the first Waldorf teacher training in the country
Wow.
in 85, and it was in Alexandra Township. It was in a black
Yeah.
township.
I think I remember that, in 85, I would
Yeah.
have been in Crescent House in
Ah,
Halfway House.
yes,
And I sort of knew of you and Trus Gerard and,
yes.
or you weren't sort of in the homeland. You were sort of like a boundary rider.
This is true.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, people were very disturbed that we were in the townships and spreading.
Yeah, I know, but it was so sad that they were.
Yeah, wasn't it? Eventually, they came around because we kept getting international visitors,
Yeah,
and they'd come
exactly.
to the main school and say, "So, can we go to Inkanyezi?" And they'd say, "No, no.
Oh.
You mean you haven't been to Inkanyezi yet?" No, no, we haven't. And I think they shamed them into
Yeah,
coming out.
yeah.
Anyway, it's
And
it's
now it's the word, about Waldorf in Africa.
exactly taken a while.
Yeah,
So,
it does.
um, so in my teacher training, I've been looking at the festivals. Obviously, you need to deal with the festivals because I run a year-long experience and I want to give people a foundation for how do you view festivals. They're not just empty, bureaucratic systems like they can become. If they
Yeah,
become a
yeah.
tradition and you only do it
And
that
Steiner
way.
calls it phraseology. It's just, as you say, hollow,
Yeah.
hollow phrases and traditional events that don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And coming out of my background, I would say, why are we doing this? And my
Yeah,
father would say, I don't know. And I'd
yeah,
say, well, what does that mean in Hebrew? I don't know. And
yeah.
then as a
Look, I
child,
remember this from, when I was back in South Africa, I was in the police force and younger than that. And we used
yeah,
to, we would mark the year with these Christian festivals, but they were just family catch-ups. I always found that hard because I thought, where's the Christ in Christmas?
yes, yeah,
But yeah, anyway, I really feel that hollowness that I used to experience.
yeah. It's kind of worse than nothing.
It
Do you know
is.
what I mean? It's kind of set up to look all glittery and wonderful and festive.
Yeah,
And then the words just ring out like a hollow echo, and it's very sad
yeah,
actually. So
yeah,
I really want to help create a process where people think about what they're doing. And like we had to create a family culture. We didn't have anything before that we wanted to emulate. So when we had
yeah,
our children, our 5 children, we had to create a culture that had festivals and had moments of celebration.
yeah,
And that was a wonderful experience because it was meaningful, it didn't matter. There's no right or wrong. It's we're going to create a festival. We're celebrating the fruits of the earth in summertime, and
exactly.
you
Yeah,
know what I mean. So we had nature. Nature's a very big inspirer, I believe. I call it my ally.
yeah,
Nature's ally teaches me. Um, so I'm also trying to inspire and encourage people to create their own rituals that are based on the truth of nature and the truth of the spirit, really.
yeah, yeah,
That's where your book came in for me.
yeah.
And I've been, because organic thinking is so different to logical thinking. You turn yourself inside
Absolutely. Yeah,
out. So
yeah.
how does
You get to this point in logic and then it turns on its head. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what I'd love to show you if I can, and you can talk to it for me and I can talk with you
yeah,
about,
lovely.
is I did a diagram because my work, I'm trying to get to the essences through artistic illustrations or diagrams. That's how I work. That's also how I learn. So
Yeah,
if I read a lecture by Steiner, so I make head or tail of it while I'm reading, and then can I make a picture? Can I
yeah,
make a picture from that? Can I actually pull up a diagram that takes me on that journey?
absolutely.
So that's what I've done. And I'd like you to correct me also. So if I've got it the wrong way
Yeah.
around. Let me just see. Did I share that? I meant to share that and it didn't.
It
Did that look
hasn't
like a
come up
share?
yet.
Okay. Oh, yes, there we go. That's more like a share. And I'm just going to, um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah, I want the slideshow. Yeah, yeah.
I'll get rid of this bar completely, but um, so maybe you can understand it because
I
you,
do, because you're talking about
yeah,
middle of June here, Uriel in the northern hemisphere, Gabriel in the southern hemisphere in winter.
and what I'm doing here, just so that you know these arrows, that what's happening is that Gabriel, the spirit of winter on the other side of the earth, is feeding
Yeah,
in through the earth in us
yeah,
and providing us with a particular perspective in
yeah,
consciousness. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, it is. And then you've got the other arrow balancing that coming down the other
Yes.
way. Yeah,
Yes. So that when that pops up in the other's winter, the northern hemisphere's winter, Uriel is bringing thinking into the winter of the north. It's about clear thinking and transforming cosmic understanding. So
yeah.
I might be wrong there. You know.
No, do you want me to comment on that before we unpack the whole thing? Because I like what you've done here, where you've got the left right between Raphael and Michael as well, because that's always the other
Yes.
question, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
Steiner, when he talks about it, he talks about, when one is in the cosmos in the north and one is down by the human being side in the south. And then you go, well, what about the other two? He didn't really explain that.
Yes.
It's a really important picture that you've put there, that there is the four quarters, and that
Yes.
while you've got your two seasons of what's happening in the north and the south, there's obviously something happening from, you've put there that, the four seasons. But it's an important picture to realize that all four are always at work.
Yes.
And I think
Exactly.
that's,
Yeah. And it's not really that I've put north and south.
yeah, I can see
Just
that. Yeah,
said that when it's summer, wherever,
exactly.
Uriel is the archangel,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And wherever it is.
Yeah,
And then we move into autumn, and then Michael is
exactly.
the being, right? So
Exactly.
that's how I've done it. So it's actually more abstract than being a north, south, east, west thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, I get that. But what's important about these arrows, and so I think I go this far in my book, but in the fifth lecture of the Four Seasons and the Archangels in 1923, October 1923, um, Steiner, it's the sort of the most detailed lecture that he gives about what happens in the South.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and he really explains that difference. And he does say that he kind of makes that picture of those arrows. But I'm going to be pretty precise here, because some of that book I need you to understand is where Steiner goes and where I've expanded it.
Yeah.
Having read it twice, you're going to understand this. But if
Yeah.
other people are going to watch this, they really need to understand this and consider it for their own part.
Yes.
So what Steiner says is that, when the archangel is in the south, so let's take this picture,
Right. Hang
the
on.
cosmic spirit Uriel, summer, um,
This one.
that one exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's take that picture and say, in winter, when Gabriel is above, that is going to be Christmas time, December. Uriel is in the south, so that's exactly the picture that's there is described.
Yes.
And what you see in that picture is that Gabriel in the south, down at the bottom there, is working into our digestive system, into the
Yes.
metabolic system.
Yes.
And Uriel is bringing the renewal of the not only the forces of thought, but the forces of the nervous system and of the the perception. So, renewing, giving new spiritual content to our our you know head system.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Now, what he says then, and of course, you've got it there, what happens in spring, what happens in summer, what happens in autumn, and the reversal. So that's all really important. But what Steiner says is that, when the archangel is in the south, so in this picture, Gabriel is in the south in the winter, because as you said, he works anywhere in winter.
Yes.
And so this would be what we're coming up to now in our sense of June,
Yes.
where through the cosmic forces that Gabriel can bring in, he renews the metabolic system. And what's wonderful about this lecture is that Steiner actually talks about the fourfold system. So it's not just thinking, feeling, willing, but he also talks about the forces of movement, the musculoskeletal system. He brings
Mm.
a fourfold aspect to, the head system, the rhythmical system, the metabolic system, but differentiates between the metabolic system and the skeletal movement system
Mm.
as the four things. So he sort of opens that up a bit at this
I
point.
saw that.
Uh,
Yes. I
hmm?
saw. Yeah, that I found it really interesting. And yeah, that's a wonderful point also for discussion.
Exactly.
Yes.
Then what he says, so this is the precise thing that he says, is that Gabriel and what happens in the Southern Hemisphere while the archangel is bringing the cosmic forces into the renewal of the metabolic system in the human being, it passes through the earth upwards to the north. Secondly, is untransformed by the forces inside the earth. That's really critical.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the whole sense of what can the inner earth forces do to change that forces. But he actually is quite precise. He says, as these forces that are renewed in the constitution in the human being in the Southern Hemisphere pass through the earth and come to the benefit of the people in the north. And literally, and this is how precise he says, they pass up through the human body and end at the top of the cranium. So it's not like it becomes a cosmic force. It's literally something that nourishes the metabolic system in our winter, in every human being in the earth.
Yeah.
And where your diagram then shows the arrow coming back the other way,
Yeah.
he doesn't say that. That's something that I ask as a question. Assuming it's correct. But
Mm.
it's a bit of a question. So therefore, does the forces of Uriel over here in the north, where he is renewing the sort of the moral imaginations in the forces of thought in the north,
Yes.
does that pass down through the earth southwards and renew the consciousness of the human being? So there's this thing of renewing consciousness from the north and renewing the constitution from the south. And I always say this, Waldorf really teaches us this. You can't bring a consciousness until the constitution is ready for it.
Yeah.
And I think this is a real key to understanding how the two or the different parts of the earth work together for
Yes.
the whole organism of the earth and for the whole organism of the human being.
A human being.
That the
So you
fourth,
said, yeah, sorry.
sorry, go. Yeah.
Consciousness of the North,
And
and what was the word you used? I just missed
constitution in the south.
institution. Yeah, of
So in
course.
the Southern Hemisphere, the archangels work into, the renewal of the senses and the nervous system,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the rhythmical system in Raphael, and the digestive system with Gabriel, and the musculoskeletal system. It's all about, ensuring the human body is transforming in
Yes.
such a way that it can receive the new imaginations given from the north.
Okay. So I just want to go back to that. Sorry, I've just got
Oh,
some.
that's fine. That's fine.
um,
Yeah.
so what? So what I've got here, because it's not about North and South, and I'm
Yeah.
hearing what you're saying, that there is very much a difference. There's a different perspective. Uh,
Yes.
what that what Uriel does, like with the thinking in summer, would be bringing, and you spoke about the sense perceptions
Yeah.
in the winter of, let's say, in the south. It would be about bringing renewal to the sense perceptions rising up in human being. And this is where you said, is this where you said a cranium, that actually it goes straight into the cranium?
So
Is
it
that
goes
where,
through the earth and blesses the people in the north. It
yes,
stops inside their bodies. It doesn't
yes,
extend beyond the
their
bodies
body,
of the human beings.
yes. And is that what we would understand then about everyone? You know, that if we look at, let's say, Raphael in spring, Raphael brings healing, and it's the rhythmic system, isn't that so? From the cosmos,
Yeah.
Raphael on this side here
Yeah.
is bringing healing. And on the other side, so I'm just looking at, in a way, north and south every time. Let's say
Yeah.
Raphael
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
springtime healing, then it goes through the earth and up into the other side, because we're always standing up, even if we're south, and goes into the body of the human being as healing breathing. It
Yeah.
affects, would is that how you figure it out?
It is how I figure it out. What the difficulty for me with this picture, as beautiful as it
Yeah.
is that Steiner differentiates. He says, you know, in that lecture cycle of the
Mm.
four seasons of the archangels,
Yeah.
he really is drawing how the archangels work differently
Yeah.
when they're in the north and when they're in the south.
Mm.
So in a way, what I see you here trying to build here is how you would need a second picture in a way,
Yes.
because let's just take the summer winter dichotomy here,
Okay.
where you have, you know, Gabriel working into the nourishment in the south during our winter.
Mm-hmm.
Uriel is in the north and has a different imagination. So Uriel isn't working into our thinking from the north at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So Uriel works into the thinking of the human being when they are in the south. Whereas when they're in the north, they have a different cosmic imagination. I suppose this is, for me in
Mm.
my book, that's what I'm trying to explore,
Mm.
because Steiner gives four cosmic imaginations of the archangels when they are in the north.
Right. Right.
And what I've tried to do in the book is build four Southern Hemisphere cosmic imaginations that complement that.
Okay.
So Uriel working into the thinking is when Uriel is in the Southern Hemisphere in summer, in December. And then he renews the thinking in the human beings, and that moves through the earth and also renews the thinking of the people in the Northern Hemisphere,
The same thing.
all at the same time, at Christmas time,
Yeah.
in December.
Right. So then, so Uriel's doing,
what I
yeah.
see in this picture is you've given a sort of a summation of the four Southern Hemisphere imaginations of how they work, um, because um, you know, when Gabriel, for example, is in the Northern Hemisphere in winter, he's not renewing the nourishment. He has another task in the north at
Ah,
that time. So each archangel has two functions bound to their season in the different hemispheres.
okay. So um, I kind of, what I've got Gabriel doing here, because I kind of did understand him, and I know it's simplistic, so I know I'm ready for a rejig. But what I've got is Gabriel in winter there is just bringing a mild and loving aspect from the cosmos,
Yes.
you know, shining
Yeah,
that down. And then it
absolutely.
goes through the earth and it comes up for the people on the other side of the earth as a sense of being loved and being blessed.
Yeah.
Um, does that does that need to be changed now? Is that
No,
not?
that just needs to be differentiated.
Yes,
So the Gabriel, when he works, has that mild, loving gesture.
yes,
But when Gabriel is in the north, that mild, loving gesture has a particular cosmic imagination. That's in December. And then in June, when Gabriel is in the south, he has that mild, loving gesture that renews our nourishment.
yeah, right.
So if
I
you give me permission to share, I'll show you uh,
yes.
I'll show you something if I can find it
Okay,
myself.
beautiful. Multiple. You should be able to do it now. And I'll
Yeah,
take
I've
this.
just got to find. I didn't anticipate sharing this, but let me just
Yeah,
quickly.
and I'll just take this one off.
Um,
Are you in Sydney?
I am in Sydney.
Also a warm day.
Yeah, it is. It's quite warm. It's overcast though. Okay, I'm going to share this just to try and. It's a bit schematic. Um,
There we are.
can you see that?
I can.
Okay, so this is a diagram that I've four diagrams that I've tried to share,
Right,
trying to understand here where you look at the imagination
right.
at Christmas time, December the 24th. Steiner describes the imagination in the Northern Hemisphere, where Gabriel is in the north in winter and Uriel is down in the south.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
right.
the imagination Steiner describes in the north, which is what he says is that, you have Mary and the child with the sun and moon bearing the spirit child to the earth.
Yeah,
That's that's the imagination that comes to us in December from the Northern Hemisphere work of Gabriel,
yes,
where he has his mild, loving gaze,
yes.
the gesture of blessing, and the weaving of garments. And this imagination gives us a renewal of our artistic imagination, or artistic imaginative expression, earthly incarnation, of course, and the balance between matter and spirit. So that's what's renewed by Gabriel in the north. At the same time, in the south, Uriel renews the human head, the nerve sense, and the thinking. And Steiner says that this is where human wisdom and forces of thought, sense perception, renewal of the head forces, and the spiritual forces active in sense perception, and the material foundation in the spiritual life. That's his task in the Southern Hemisphere in December. And that's what comes through the earth to every human being on the planet, is this renewal of our constitution, so that this content, this renewal of our consciousness, where we renew our artistic imagination, can be caught into the new sense perceptions. So we need to develop the sense perceptions so that new artistic imaginative expression can come about. And this is the situation in the world. So at that time of December, you've got the
Okay.
sun going through Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. That's, going November, December, January, February, where you have different signs. In astrology, we call them deacons. So you've got the foal and Pegasus, but in the Southern Hemisphere, you've got the American Indian and certain things in the Southern cosmos. So here we have Gabriel above in the cosmos, and then Uriel down below in the southern stars, drawing these forces out of the cosmos, while Gabriel in the north is drawing these forces from the northern hemisphere to do this.
Mm,
Let's
mm.
now go from Christmas to,
This is in your book, isn't it?
it is in my book. This is
Yeah,
from my book.
yeah,
So when
yeah.
you go to St. John's, which is now 26 months later,
Right.
Uriel is in the south in the summer, and Gabriel is in the north.
Yeah.
Sorry, no. Uriel is in the north and Gabriel's in the south. Sorry,
Mhm.
St. John. So winter in the south, and Gabriel, you'll see, has now another task. So while he's still got that beneficial look,
Yes.
forces that he draws, we've now got the sun in Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and there's a completely different set of forces in the Southern Hemisphere, um, stars. It's about the great ship Argo. And this is the premise of my book, is that we should be here in the Southern Hemisphere in winter looking at Jason and the Argonauts in winter to
Right.
draw understanding of the renewal of the digestion and the metabolic system. But in winter, so this is a completely different task.
Yes.
Gabriel, when in winter in the south, renews nutrition, and that goes to the good of the whole of humanity through the earth as described. But Uriel's task in the northern hemisphere is changed. So Uriel isn't renewing like up here. Uriel up here is renewing the nerve sense system in the
Right.
south in December.
Right.
When you get Uriel up here in the north in summer,
Yeah.
he's got the just judicial look, the
Right.
warm mien, the radiant intelligence, a dove, and the imagination that Steiner describes while Uriel is in the south is we've got this new trinity: the gold of the Spirit Father, the silver of the Earth Mother, Demeter Mary, and the human being in the form of the Son. And he renews at that time of the year in our consciousness our sense of the moral. So how moral is interwoven with the natural, human virtue and excellence, historic conscience is renewed, while at the same time Gabriel is renewing the nutrition system, which is it's a very complex understanding. So
Yeah.
what I found was that Steiner described these imaginations for the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
What's missing is an imagination to describe this southern work.
Yes.
So I've tried to begin to, and I've worked with it since the publication of my book, to try and describe southern hemisphere cosmic imaginations that balance or complement this
Mm.
northern hemisphere imagination given by Steiner. But the northern hemisphere imagination renews. It's kind of like the development of the human spiritual consciousness in the north.
Yeah.
He gives us a doorway to describe how the human constitution is being changed in the south, but doesn't give us any imaginations. And that's where I've pushed my
And
book.
where would you where would you source things for the imagination?
Okay, so what I've done in the book is, for example, just here, St. John's, where you've
Uh-huh.
got the Spirit Father. Easter's actually the easiest one to start with. Easter and St. John's is a little bit easier because you've got, for example, at Easter time, so this is April,
Yeah.
in the north, we've got Raphael up there
Right.
with his Mercury staff, balancing between Lucifer and Ahriman. So we think of the picture of the representative of the human being,
Yeah.
the healing forces to rebuild the human being. But he gives this imagination. He says the imagination that arises is Christ freed of the weight of earth, with Ahriman at his feet, and his bearing dissolves Lucifer.
What does that
What
mean,
I
bearing?
saw, this is one of the things that really made sense to me was that at that time of the year, the sun is passing through Pisces, Aries, Taurus, April. So
Mm-hmm.
now, this time of the year, we've got Aries. And the northern hemisphere stars is Perseus, who, is free of the weight of earth with wings on his feet.
Mm, mm.
Christ, freed of the weight of the earth. So I was sort of pondering with that, saying Perseus 2,000 years ago was a
Ah,
Christ figure. He was there,
ah,
flying on the wings with Pegasus, going to free Andromeda from the Leviathan, the whale in below the surface.
Yeah.
So, in the sky, you actually have this in the old mythologies, the source for the Christian mythology.
Mm.
And so Steiner's sort of saying we need to actually bring the old mythologies into a Christian language.
Mm.
So
Mm.
Perseus could be seen as Christ freed of the weight of earth. So my question then was, is Michael given us in the Southern Hemisphere, do we have pictures south of Pisces, Aries, and Taurus, where the human being's power of will is reflected in the ancient mythologies? And you've got Orion.
Ah,
Orion is in the sky at that time of the year.
yeah.
We can unpack the Orion, but he's the human being who goes out and has this will, and he's the one who walks the world as the hunter.
Yes.
We can go, it's also it's also the resurrection body of Osiris, all those sorts of things. So there are Southern Hemisphere star stories
Ah,
that tell the complementary story to what's going on in the Northern Hemisphere.
wow. Yes.
And I worked that through to a point in the first book, where each of these things. So, for example, when you go to, let's go to Michaelmas. So you've got Michaelmas, where you've got Michael's fight with the dragon, the cosmic iron. In the
Mm-hmm.
south, you've got the human being renewed in the human breathing. If we go to the cosmic imaginations, you've got the sun moving through Virgo, Libra, Scorpio in that time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got Hercules fighting the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So Hercules fighting the dragon is a sort of the same story
Yeah.
in another mythology.
Yeah.
So do we have something of in the Southern Hemisphere of Raphael working into the breathing forces? And I've suggested that, Chiron, the centaur, in his conversation with the wolf in the Southern Hemisphere stars, which has the Southern Cross in it, could be something telling us about this work of Raphael in the Southern Hemisphere. If
Yeah.
we could, and what my challenge is to say, well, how do we not just tell, the story of Chiron to our children, but is there a way, for example, right now where the mythology of the wolf can be rewritten?
Uh-huh.
So,
Uh-huh.
traditionally, the wolf, Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf's a big bad wolf. But if we rewrite it that the wolf is the carer of environments, is the if we read the Mowgli stories, the wolves are the ones that create community. We could actually rewrite the wolf into a wonderful,
Mm.
and Chiron being the teacher of healing, I
Mm.
think is a representative of Raphael in the Southern Hemisphere.
Mm.
When
Mm.
we look at the mythologies in the skies, in the stories of the skies, you see Chiron as a spear to the wolf's throat.
Mm.
But what if now Chiron's actually talking to the wolf?
Yeah.
This is the challenge Steiner gives us: is can we write new mythologies?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you
And I
know
think
the
that really
story?
meets with what you want to do.
Yeah. Do you know the story of, you must, the Wolf of Gabio?
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
I mean, that's been a story, one of my favorites to tell children because, what it does. I mean, in so many ways, it shows you how to be with a wolf,
exactly.
and not treat him as your enemy, which is
Yeah,
the way of Christ, isn't it?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and it's,
The Jungle Book raised Mowgli. The
yeah,
wolves, the wolf
yes,
pack raised, the
yeah,
scouts, for better and worse, used that mythology. We're in the pack.
yeah.
Woman
So,
who runs with wolves. All those, they're beautiful
exactly.
rewritings of the wolf mythology as a healing mythology.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah,
then, of course, the metamorphosis into the dog,
exactly,
faithful companion, healing
exactly, absolutely.
companion.
Yeah.
So
So,
now the
so
question,
that's where I've gone with it, and I
yeah,
sort of put it there in a very rudimentary form in that book.
yeah, yeah,
And we need to practice this. I sort of left that with a challenge of saying,
yeah.
work this out.
What we're
Start
gonna,
doing this and develop imaginations for a Southern Hemisphere
Yeah.
complement of Michaelmas.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's tremendously exciting. I want to know, what about the Aboriginal star pictures, astrology? Is there any benefit in exploring them and what they see in the stars here?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I am still really working with that.
yeah,
Um, there
oh,
are definite things that we can draw on
yeah,
that would help that.
yeah,
My understanding is that they don't just have song lines on the earth,
yeah,
but there are song lines in the skies.
yeah, lovely. Yeah,
And they are, they're the northern indigenous song lines, and then the southern indigenous song lines in the sky that, in a way, have become separate amongst the people. And there are people that I know who are starting to call corroborees to
yeah.
teach each other of the two halves of the song lines
Oh, wow. Yeah,
around Mount Wollumbin, Mount Warning,
yes,
and then where you are, there is definite conversation happening
yeah,
to teach us about, and those song lines change per season.
yes, yeah.
So we have to try and understand their stories.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
so a simple example would be the Southern Cross, which is in the Michaelmas. Um, it's in the area of the centaur and the wolf and Scorpio, and they have it's a real source for them of creation, the Southern Cross,
yeah.
where Dungdung and Nadi are at the foot of the cross, as we call it, where all the sources of the fire sticks of the creation stories come into being.
Ah, ah.
Um, we could correlate that with the fire in the heart breath system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. So, um,
I was involved in a project in Fitzroy Crossing
yeah,
with two dreaming stories, just held by the one family, actually. And the one dreaming story, the site is the Fitzroy River
yeah,
or Matuara River. And there's a crevice down the rock face there at the river, massive crevice, where Brown Falcon came down into the water to free the fire from Old Man Crocodile. And Old Man Crocodile is a rock in the middle of the river. And so he comes very fast down while Old Man Crocodile is distracted and gets the fire from under the water and then releases it to the earth and the people and the community above.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
my,
that's a very interesting story up there. And it must be connected to much more than, like the way you're talking, must be connected to the stars, when it happened, which time of the year it happened, and all
yeah.
of.
Look, I've worked with a number of Aboriginal communities, and they are layers, just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
anthroposophy. So what we told at first is, how to behave as a child,
Yes, right.
and then once you've learned that, you get the next echelon, and eventually you get into the more sort of cosmic layers of it.
Yes,
Um,
into
and
the
that would
wisdom.
certainly be something to explore with time as we do.
Yeah,
Uh, One of the things that flags for me is initially Steiner's renewal of the cycle of the year and the festivals is not to have our starting point as the physical seasons of the year. So we don't start with, it's winter and snow, therefore it's Christmas. That's old.
mm, mm.
We need to renew our relationship to nature in this holistic sense. It's winter in the north and summer in the south, therefore it's Christmas.
Yeah, 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 lovely.
Yeah,
And I mean, for me, I must say, I did feel when I was reading your book that there definitely was a shift. I mean, I always felt the earth, once I started learning, I felt the earth was one being,
yeah,
right? And it's what I've come with, so somehow.
yeah,
But I really felt that your book laid down a pathway, very complicated one, but
Very
it laid
complicated,
down.
sorry.
Yeah.
And not well written. Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, when I can read it with great intelligence throughout the book, maybe I can comment on that. But I can't right now. But I felt that
Well, it's a
what
bit labyrinthial, yeah.
it is, but I mean, isn't organic thinking labyrinthial? You know,
Yeah,
you've got
absolutely.
to go all in all
Yeah,
directions all
exactly.
at the same time,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Good.
hope you don't go mad. But I did feel that it's almost like the impulse, the intention of your book was to bring the earth together as one,
Exactly.
carrying the things that would tear you apart in, in an integrated way.
Yeah, thank you. That's
I
very
felt
true.
inspired to do more of that. I could have also read your book and said, too hard basket.
Absolutely.
Just, you know,
And it
it's,
is. It is in one way, yeah. But so
yeah,
thank you for persisting. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's Steiner books I know I'll never get to. I
Yeah.
start reading them and I just think, okay, I'm going to bury this somewhere so that I can remember in my next life. I've got to pick it up.
Where I can come and dig it up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's great, Martin. So what's happened for me, I don't know what's happened for you right now. What's happened for me is further rereading
Yeah.
um, the lectures by Steiner on the four archangels and the imaginations
Yeah.
and
What I
living.
would be very interested to see is
Yeah,
if you could create 4 drawings or 2 drawings,
yes,
to take the one that you showed at the beginning and show
yes,
the north-south aspect at the same time.
right.
That would be an interesting development
Okay,
to look at.
yes. So I need to figure out the drawing that I've done. What is that a picture of? Because as I said, it was abstract.
What I saw there, and this may be wrong,
Yeah.
but what I saw there was you've taken the 4 Southern Hemisphere gestures and flowed them into each other,
Okay.
and you've dropped the Northern Hemisphere. You've sort of conflated the Northern Hemisphere gestures with that a little bit,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they need to be a bit more differentiated.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to need to pick that up and
And I would be really keen to work with you when you've done one. We could have a conversation in between, and we could have a 10-minute quick look at the picture to say, is this going in the right direction?
yeah, yeah, that would be great. That would be lovely. I
I
definitely
think
need.
the art is the way to make it, is to make it visible. So it's really important.
Yes, absolutely. I've done things like with the 12 senses and all of that, that could drive you nuts, in terms of the transformation of
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
lower four into the,
Yeah,
and also what it also brings about when it's properly nourished and when it doesn't, when
yeah,
it's not properly nourished,
yeah,
there's
exactly.
all the behavioral and difficult needs, special needs manifest because those senses have not been nourished.
Excellent. Yeah,
And it's also, I think, a healing. You can nourish your senses when you're 50 if you realize that, you know, what you
even
really
at
need.
our age, we can still do that.
Yeah, we can still heal these things. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Martin, thank you. Has this been valuable for you?
Oh, yeah. Look, for me, I wrote that book. It took me 20 years to write it,
Sure.
longer. And it's been sitting there, and I've been doing, further pondering. And every time I talk about it, it just makes it a bit more real and allows me to bring a little bit more clarity to describing it. And as I said, I think recording it could be of great value to put it out there for people who are reading the book as a resource to go, hey, listen to this dialogue between Carol and
Yeah.
Martin.
Yeah.
Um, it
Oh,
may help you unpack it a bit.
yeah.
I think it's really important to have those, because people are left very much on their own resources when reading these very complicated things, and they
Yeah.
are complicated.
For
So
sure.
I value it very much.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm very glad. I'm glad I reached out.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well done. It's vast. And just bringing in the zodiac and the constellations and everything is vast,
Yeah, it's
like really amazing.
Yeah, I'm really trying to work on a second volume to unpack some more of the detail, and this would be
Yeah.
very helpful towards that. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well,
Good.
get in touch again when I've got something,
Okay, excellent.
maybe further. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks,
I
Carol.
will I will send you a link to this straight
Okay,
away.
lovely.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.